Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for joining tonight for our monthly show and tell. Tonight, Rebecca is hosting with the theme Story of a Place. Show us a photo story about a place. What are you looking for? And is it possible to return? And I'm kind of excited. I know that Anita and Vince are too. We've got so many new people who signed up tonight, which is fantastic. So we always have such a good time at show and tells. And since so many of you are new, I'm just going to let you know we started these at the beginning of the pandemic. We used to have them every other month at Vince and Anita's house, and we were having them twice a week during the pandemic for almost 4 months. It kind of kept us sane, and then we slowly switched to once a week and then once a month, and we have been sticking with the once a month ever since, because it's just been such a great thing. So Anita and or Vince, do you want to make any EPCO general announcements for tonight?
We're staring each other down. The two that come immediately to mind, so we're sort of winding down some activities for the year, but we have a closing reception for Judy Dater's wonderful show, The Gun Next Door, at our gallery, Oakland Photo Workshop. That closing reception is on Friday, the 17th of November, from 5 to 9. 6 to 9, I believe, actually. And yeah, there'll be drinks and snacks and a chance to see the artwork before it gets taken down. So recommend that. And then our last workshop of the year is the following day, the 18th, also at the gallery. Dr. Film, Philip Crana will look over your film camera if you have any questions about anything that's going wrong with it. If you know anybody that's kind of new to the film photography world and has kind of just gotten a camera, recommend checking that out. I'll put a couple links in the chat.
Yeah, that's a great workshop. You can there is a sign up sheet, but you can also kind of show up, but it's good to know how many people are going to come if that's possible.
And then the member show opens on December 8th, Friday, December 8th. That's another exciting, member shows are always super creative, so real celebration of creativity this year as well. So that's going to be another fun night. Put that in your calendar. And that's kind of it for the year, I think, right?
I think it is. We will be closed the week of the weekend of Thanksgiving. The gallery will be closed. The darkroom will not. The weekend of Thanksgiving and the following weekend when we will be hanging the new show. So just always check our website just in case, but we do know that the gallery will be closed those 2 weekends. Alrighty, moving on. Rebecca, I'm going to hand it over to you. There you are. Take it away.
Okay. Let me. No, what did I do? Oh, that's so funny. Ha ha ha. Okay, y'all. I'm Rebecca. It does feel like it's like midnight or something. I volunteered to be the host tonight, which means I just keep the chat going a bit. And the reason I like to be the host is because I often don't know when to jump into conversations. So this helps me with that. All right, do you see my screen?
Yes, we see your.
Okay, all
great.
right. So the theme tonight is Story of a Place. And so presenters may have seen this when you signed up, but for anyone who's just like in the audience or never really looked at the EPCO site, there's this, which is like, what's the vibe? And so anyone is welcome to participate as long as part of the show and tell audience. As an audience member, you can see the work being presented and participate in the conversation. Show and tell is not a critique. session. It's about inspiration and encouragement. The best comments are positive ones, letting the photographer know what parts of their projects are really working for you. If the photographs are not your cup of tea, then please stay silent. Conversation is moderated by the host, who will do her best to keep the conversation flowing. Group conversations on Zoom can be awkward. Please be patient and try to limit your own comments to a short segment to help make room for everyone to speak who wants to speak. So that's the vibe. So welcome. We're all about encouragement and inspiration. And anyone who's been a presenter before, can you let everyone know what it feels like to have presented? Like Jenny's presented before. How did it feel after you did it?
I think it feels pretty good. I've had some experience. I mean, I know in the beginning it's really scary to put your work out there, can feel vulnerable, but really at the end of the day, it's super helpful to get people's thoughts about your work, because often I hear things that I'm not saying about my own work. So it helps me understand my own work sometimes. It's a good adrenaline rush.
Okay, yeah, I as a presenter, I've definitely made friends through presenting, which has been good. I've met people who've either had similar projects or kind of inspired me to expand my work. So also being a presenter just helped me get organized and get focused. So that's what I've liked about presenting. So being an audience person is really great too. And I would say we're here to encourage the presenters, and the presenters can encourage us by being inspirational, by getting it together to present. Okay, so we're just to practice warming up a little bit, just in conversation, because not only are the presenters going to present for 10 minutes, but we may have a little bit of room at the end to kind of share how we've been encouraged or inspired. So perhaps some people saw this image. It is like what advertised this particular event, and it's my picture. I'm just wondering if we could just kind of do popcorn. This is just a warm up. What do you guys see? Like maybe one word, like a noun, like for instance, blue sky. Anyone can jump in with like, what is something you see? Maybe one word.
Road trip.
Road trip. What else?
A break.
Dinosaurs.
What? I missed that one. I heard road
I said a break.
Okay, cool.
And I'm waiting for a dinosaur to come running up into the rearview mirror.
Okay.
Got a long ways to run, though.
Definitely feels like West, like some cowboy's gonna come by or something.
Okay, the West, yeah. All right.
So the image looks a little skewed compared to the background. It's a little offsetting as I try to look into the mirror.
Yeah, like also nothing's too obvious. Like you could say scrub brush or clouds or grass or the line of the road. All right, so now we're gonna practice like thinking. And by thinking, it's like, what questions do you have? Like a question could be, where are they going? Where have they been?
I'm wondering if it's part of a series.
Okay, part of a series. That's one question. That's good.
Why are they looking backwards?
Right.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Where is it? Okay, cool. All right, next. Maybe wondering, like with wondering as opposed to thinking, I'm thinking if someone gave you like a piece of paper with this picture on it and told you it was like a message to you, what would the message be?
Slow down.
Slow down.
You can't tell where you're going by looking backward.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing comes up is, where are you? I mean, if there's no one out there, where are you by yourself like that?
Yeah, right now I'm just feeling like, I need to like go on vacation. This is something that it is telling me.
But
All
you're
right,
on vacation.
I'm on vacation, yeah. Okay, that one about the dinosaur coming across the page is funny too. It's like great. All right, so that was our warm up just on just getting our just starting to use our voices, and you know, it feels like so much the middle of the night with the time change. Tonight we have 5 presenters. So the first one, you can presenters, you can see your names, I hope.
Mhm.
And we have got Michael, Jorge, Alan, Adriana. I hope I'm saying that right, and Helen. This is the order we're going to go in. We had 6 people, but now it's 5 people. So maybe it's like you have about 12 minutes, and you can decide what you want to do with that 12 minutes. The questions I put for this story of a place is I'm wondering, what are you looking for, and can you ever go back? That's what I'm curious about. Oh, that's backwards. Okay, so in your like 12 minutes, you can either show your slides. I know that often people want to see them again. You can choose whether you wanted to talk while you're showing your slides, or if you want, you could just show them and think like the work is working itself. You know, you don't have to speak about a story. So it's your style. Also, if you just want to show the work and then give us your audience, the audience, a little chance to encourage you, or say thank you, or say what inspired us, we can do that too. So it's really your time. And I'm so excited to see what you're bringing. And how does that sound to you, presenters?
It's good.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first person up is Michael. I'll let you introduce yourself, Michael, and tell us about your story of a place.
Okay, so I'll try to talk at first and then talk at the end. But I I live in the suburbs, but I like to explore the city, and I like to explore rural areas. So in many critiques, I said there was nothing in the suburbs for me to shoot. And so about 5 years ago, I decided to shoot where I sleep and shut up and see what I could find out in the suburbs. What I'd like to show you is scenes from 2 suburbs that I found. And just note that this started with me riding around with a bike, a camera, and a tripod, and it turned into my COVID project. So what you're seeing is what I saw on foot during the 2020 and 2021 as I went around. And so I will let you keep that in mind and show you what I found in 10 slides. So I should tell you that when I was doing this, I realized, remembered that as a kid, I used to ride my bike around and enjoy looking at the sun-dappled houses in my old neighborhood. And it's evidently I wanted to go back. So what you see in the first part of this, in the first 5 pictures, is the area that I went to immediately. This is the place where I live. There's 3 towns in this area in the Midwest that I traveled around for about 4 years looking at different houses. I have winter shots and such, but that's going into too many seasons. So this first 5 of these pictures are in an area on the sort of the cusp of the suburbs, on the edge of the rural, on the edge of the suburban areas. And this is what I found when I went out there to look around. Last May, I got a chance, the weather held up, and I got a chance to go back to where I grew up in my old neighborhood. And these are the 5 pictures that I'm showing you from my old neighborhood, and the chance that I got to go back and imagine what it was like as a kid to see my old neighborhood. Now, my old neighborhood doesn't. I've been selective. My old neighborhood has not is generally were held up pretty well, but it's not quite the same as when I was there. But I'd like to share with you what I saw as a kid on my bike.
And this was during the pandemic, you said?
Many of the shots, the first 5 shots were actually, I think maybe 4 or 5 of them, 4 out of the 5 were shot during 2020, summer of 2020. These last 5 shots were shot during the summer of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little more about how you are thinking about this project?
The projects that I choose, I like to examine arrangements of objects, typically abandoned objects. Now, in the suburb, there's not a lot of abandoned objects there, but during the day, all of these are abandoned objects. No one's living here at the time, although there are owners who probably go into the city to work. So I'm interested in composition, collecting things together. I do take pictures of individual houses because of a particular perspective I have, but the project is in my mind, I think of it as neighbors. The idea is to bring together different types of houses that happen to be situated next to one another. I did not grow up in a Leviton type of neighborhood. It was very unique in each of the ways. And so you see this in each of these pictures. Now, one of the nice things is these houses are well kept up. It's a little different than occasionally shooting things in the city, or I do a lot of shooting out rurally in old farmyards and such where things have been left lying and haven't been abandoned. And I'm interested in sort of how randomness can be construed as composition.
noticed the shadows are really significant.
What was that first part?
I noticed that the shadows are really significant.
That's the thing I saw as a kid, and the thing that I maybe perhaps got me into photography, about capturing these shadows, the dappling of the trees on the houses and such. I typically go out on sunny days. I prefer to do that, although I've gone out in snowstorms and things like that, because I think that offers another piece. But this is about light and shadow, but not your typical item that you might see light and shadow in.
Feel like there's also a lot of geometry, both from the houses themselves and from the shadows.
Yes. I mean, it's hard not
And
to.
it's something that the objects all share. They all share these angles and lines.
Yes. It's hard not to it's hard to get away from that in this particular arrangement, but that's part of the pleasure, I think, of seeing that geometry. The geometry acts as structure. It acts as, when we're looking at houses, we like to think of them as accommodating, perhaps, or being a security. And those linear structures help us think about that a little bit more.
So
Go ahead.
Halloween night, I watched the original Halloween with some friends.
Mhm.
I hadn't seen it in a really long time. And I keep thinking about it with these pictures. Because there were so many shots, looking out the window at the houses across the street, and there aren't many people there. Of course, it was all at nighttime for the most part, but there was a very, and then, a lot of these are taken during the pandemic, and when people just, it just was so quiet. It's like this funny feeling of feeling very isolated, except you're among all of these homes, where you would expect there to be a lot of people around.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you mention isolation, because I don't feel isolated here, but one of the criticisms I've had of this is there are no people here, but the retort is that there weren't any people here.
That is not a problem in my mind, that there are no
good.
people. I think it adds something to it, actually.
Subtraction adds something, huh?
Well, do you feel like does your kid heart feel like the houses are your friends, or the houses are best friends next to each other, or anything like that?
I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought in that way. I think about them as neighbors. My experience with neighbors is that I don't know that I had a best friend living next door to me. So I don't quite picture that, but these are in some sense sort of sentries that are sort of supporting one another down the block. They tend to create a space. They create a I don't know if I'd say a fortification, but they create a facade. They create a facade of security and comfort that you might expect from that. A single house might not signify that, but I think a series of houses like this might offer that as a concept behind it.
I can see that in the way they gather together in certain images, like this one that's up now. The way the houses group and create a space. I'm struck by a couple other things, though.
Yeah.
One is the balance between the natural geometries and the man-made geometries. Straight lines versus the trees, the way light is caught by brick versus the way
Yes.
light is caught by foliage. Especially here, that green and white in the center, the incredible texture of that smallish tree or large bush. I'm not sure what it is in the front. There's some really beautiful places where light is really becoming alive. And then
Yes.
the houses, they have, geometries that repeat with variation. So they're friends, they're relatives almost of each other.
Sort of part of a family, cousins in a way.
Kind of, yeah. And in one way, they, part of me says, oh, they're expressing individuality. Another part of me is saying they're all trying desperately to conform. The tension of living in community.
The thing, that's interesting that you talk about confirmation is, I look at this as being sort of, they've been in a way dropped here randomly. I mean, none of, as it's not a Leviton, it's each of these houses have a certain character to themselves, and you can see the difference between one and the other. And a lot like when I go out and look for things that people have dropped or discarded and have fallen together, these in a way offer something similar to that, a little less random, a little more structured, but still in the background of my mind, it is about being thrown down together, being partners in sort of a buddy film of some sort.
All right, time flies, believe it or not. In the interest of fairness, we're going to be moving forward.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like, I remember getting on my bike and having a lot of freedom. So, while we're getting ready for our next presenter, will everyone who wants to drop some words of encouragement or something that this inspired in them in the chat?
And also, I just wanted to say thank you as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Michael. All right, Jorge, you're up.
Okay, let me share my screen. So mine, I'm just gonna be sharing them off of my Apple Photos. I didn't create slides. But
share any way you want.
okay. And this is my first time sharing like any photography work, so I'm a little nervous, but and I do have 24. So that's quite a lot. So I'll try to speed through them, and I can just kind of, stop at a certain amount if we run out of time. But yeah, so a little bit of background on this. It's also somewhat related to kind of childhood nostalgia, but it's more so my father's childhood. So he grew up in this really small town in the mountains of Mexico. And as a kid, he would take us there every summer. There's a lot of festivities that go on in the summer. And we would go there, and other families from that area that have since left that area would also come back and just kind of enjoy the festivities throughout the summer. So this was back in 2022 when I got my first film camera ever in 2022, and I went to Mexico that summer and started playing around with it, and this is kind of what I captured. And I feel like this is going to be kind of a lifelong journey for me as I continue to go back with my family and just kind of try to capture the magic of this place that my father would describe to me, and that I've kind of started to notice a little more as I go back every summer. Okay, so the place is called Temazcal, and it's very similar to the Temazcal that's here in Oakland, actually. I think they're referring to the same thing, but this one's just with an X, but that's what the small town is called. Okay, and this is a shot as you're kind of approaching the town. It's a dirt road that leads, it's maybe 40 minutes from the closest actual town. So this town it's more like a ranch town. It's up in the mountains. There's really no government there. There's just a big church and a bunch of different families living on different branches, and just kind of living off the farming and agriculture. So there's a shot going into the town. And again, I'll just go through them. If there's any questions, feel free to kind of ask. This is the church, and it being a rural kind of small Mexican town, it's very Catholic, and everything essentially revolves around the church. The most influential person is kind of the person that kind of organizes everything for the church, and they kind of help kind of run the entire community. So yeah, everything kind of revolves around the church. So it's a really important piece of the town.
It's nice.
And this is actually my grandparents' house. So the one on the corner going up that hill, that's where my dad grew up, and that's where we go every summer. And it extends all the way across to the left. And we've kind of been expanding it as more and more people go. So it's kind of one of the ironies of this town. It's really become somewhat of a ghost town for most of the year, except for the summer when, you know, all the different families come. And it's actually gets so bad in the summer that we start running out of water and have to, you know, go pump the wells and make sure that we're able to get enough water to like shower and everything. But yeah, it kind of, the question that was posed by the host, you know, can we ever go back? That's what kind of prompted me to want to share these images, because as I mentioned, it has become somewhat of a ghost town, but at the same time, more and more people come just to kind of experience it and kind of you know, revel in the nostalgia of what it used to be. And obviously it's nostalgic for, you know, all the people that grew up there and have since left. And another thing I was interested in capturing is just kind of how nature is kind of taken over a lot of the, you know, the structures and just infrastructure and, you know, man-made, you know, objects up in the mountains. So that's a beehive there in the window, and then obviously the vines kind of wrapping around the building. Another thing that is part of the festivities there is that they'll have like a band that goes around to each house. This happens like early in the morning on the day of like the main festival. They'll go around to every house starting at 6 a.m. and play a couple songs in front of every house, and that house will offer food and drinks, and you know, people dance and just celebrate. This day is supposed to be for the Virgin Mary, so everything's in celebration of this particular sacred day for the Virgin Mary. It's just another image of the musicians. So this is looking out from my grandparents' house. You see the one little road that kind of leads into the town. That's the only way in and out. And the closest, you know, larger town with actual government presence is way back at the base of the mountain in the very back. So just showing kind of how remote this town is from, you know, other forms of civilization. Just more images of so these next few are just kind of looking at, you know, daily life here. You know, there's a lot of animals just roaming around. There's pigs, donkeys, cows, chickens, just they kind of just, you know, walk wherever. They're not really corralled very often. That they usually just come back to eat, and then they'll be set free and just roam around. Again, it's just kind of looking at, you know, the tension between the structures that existed there and just nature kind of reclaiming it. And then again, kind of looking at where the town is now. Like there's a lot of technology coming into it. There's internet there now, there's electricity, there's they've improved the water system, and now people are driving up there. They have motorcycles and ATVs that they use to get around. This is just kind of showing how that that future is kind of there now, and obviously like the younger generations, they're just making it their own and enjoying the festivities. And this is a friend of the family that's actually making what's called barbacoa, and it sounds like barbecue because that's essentially what it is. It's slow smoked meats in the ground. So he's preparing the pit to cook the meats in there. And then this is actually my father and my grandma, and honestly, like I only see my dad this happy when he's in his childhood town. So, and then this is the actual festival. This is kind of during midday. People will walk around with this big structure for the Virgin Mary, and again they'll go house to house and just say a prayer and then continue on. And so this is my grandma's little stand, and then they come and say a prayer, and then they move on to the next house. And that's all I have. Well, it's not, that was a lot, I know, but
Wow.
Jorge, were you shooting in color and black and white, or were you changing things from color to black and white?
No, those are all out of the camera. Both black and white and color.
Can you go back to the one with the TV sitting on against the wall?
That's a cool picture.
That is stunning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It makes me wonder what it would show.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Those great Friedlander photographs with the televisions, it would be a very different take.
I think this is a nice example of there's people pictures and non-people pictures, and I think they complement each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're using the whole frame here, which is really nice. The organic vines and stuff around the outside, the concrete in the inside, and then the sort of the triangle between the television and the windows on the right, and then some of the pieces right in the front left, all add, I think, a lot to this interest here. It keeps my eye moving around this particular image a lot, and I like that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite, and there's a lot going on, but I think it does keep it interesting.
But even though there's a lot going on, you've got sort of these groups of things that sort of keeps the whole image organized, I think. So that works out well.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's also centrally focused, like the main
Right.
subject is in the center, and that's true in a number of these images. But here, you're right, because of the way the whole frame is activated, it is much more lively.
Jorge, I had a question for you about kind of your goal when you're shooting something like this. When I see projects like this that other artists have done, there's a lot of different ways you could go with it, like presenting it like as a photo book or like a presentation like this, or as individual images presented individually. Do you think about that when you're taking this, or do you take these and then see what kind of presentation comes to you later?
I don't really think about it, to be honest. And these particular images, I was just kind of really just trying to represent like what I was seeing as best as I could. And with no particular, objective in terms of, how to present it or showcase it. I was just really focused on, just capturing what I was seeing and what looked interesting to me at the time.
And now that you have what looks like a pretty strong set of images, do you think about presenting them in a specific way?
I haven't given it too much thought. I would like to present, and that's part of the reason why I kind of decided to share today. Just kind of trying to see what feedback I would get and maybe what other people's thoughts are. But like for me, it's gonna be like I mentioned, I plan to continue going, and it's gonna be kind of ongoing project. I don't think it'll ever end for me. So I stopped going pretty much. But I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I think I would want to capture different aspects and create different projects out of this one larger project, and maybe kind of categorize things, as I start kind of seeing those kind of categories, or as they kind of arise in my mind, I guess.
Sure.
I can't believe
Jorge.
it's been 12 minutes, I think.
Oh, real quick, Jorge. This is Catalina. I think I've talked with you a couple of times, and just really, really glad that you're documenting, and I think that's the important thing, to document the fact that we're coming from here and going to Mexico and seeing things with eyes that are from here, but we're from there. We're from there also. So it's kind of like it's a weird thing, but you got to keep documenting that. Yeah. It's a point of view. It's a point of view. It's a specific point of view that you have.
Yeah, and then
we go back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the courage to present.
Those are really great.
And show us what you're working on. If anyone who wants to put some encouragement into the chat about these images, that will be awesome. Okay, next we have Alan.
Just leaving a comment. Just 1 second. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's see if I can do this. Oh, hold on. It's asking me for system preferences. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, is everybody seeing me?
Yes.
Here,
Yes.
okay, great. So,
Is that you?
yeah, that's me. Yeah. My background is as a wildlife biologist, and that got me into photography. But I realized that I was doing all my shooting in on trips or for work, and I didn't really do any local shooting. So around 2017, I decided that I wanted to really focus on getting to know my local open space, which is Wildcat Canyon. It's a regional park that's just north of Tilden in Richmond. And So I spent about a year doing a lot of photography there. And after that year, I was like, I could probably make a calendar. I think that'd be a really cool way to kind of synthesize what I've done together and to share my love of this place with other people, kind of celebrate the open space, and as a connection for other people that live near me. And so I did that, and then I did it again and again. And so I've done 5 of these now. So this is now I'm kind of collecting photos for my 6th one. So I've got a few of these. I'm not going to focus on these photos, but what I wanted to do was kind of spend the first part of this, just this may be really trivial for this audience, but kind of the thoughts that go into designing a calendar, having to tell a new story year after year that's distinctly different from the last one you did, but also captures the place that in a recognizable way. And then at the end, I'll share some pictures that are from kind of days or environments that don't fit with the calendar. And I don't know, those may be the more interesting ones for you guys, but because the first thing that I usually have to do is think about a cover. So this is a red-tailed hawk that's launching off of a kind of mossy dead branch in a gentle rain. So a photo like this, it's nice and dramatic, and it also has a lot of negative space, which lets me put a little bit of text in there for the cover. And it's something I can identify with that year's project. And then throughout then the rest of it is trying to find pictures that kind of convey the walk through the canyon throughout the year. So things that give the feeling of being there in the winter, the spring, the summer. Usually about half of them are photos of birds in their environment, and then the other half are mammals or insects or flowers or fungus or something like that. So like for an example of a winter shot, it might be something like this. So these are called like fly agaric or amanita mushrooms. They appear for just a couple weeks in January. And there's one spot that's really good for them in my part of the park, at least. And so it's always a fun visit up to this part and to try to see if there's some that are in good shape that the cows haven't stepped in. But this is winter time. You've got the the wet feeling, the fog. We got some green, but it's it doesn't feel like spring here. Then we might move into another month where we know we have this brief period where the hills are like pretty and green. It seems to go away way too fast, but there may be days where you could be up on San Pablo Ridge and looking across at Mount Tam and having some beautiful kind of post-storm clouds going by.
That is shockingly green.
Yeah, I know. I don't always get a shot like this. One of the problems is the trails can be quite muddy when it's been raining. So sometimes the rainier springs, it's actually more difficult to get out there and photograph in those conditions. So summertime, grass is brown. One of the real treats of the kind of annual cycle I've discovered is that the park district brings in these fire prevention goats, and they just provide endless photo opportunities, either as kind of portrait subjects, or here this is just kind of the group shot of, it's almost a Where's Waldo of what each goat is doing at the time. And then kind of a fall shot is, the time of harvest and kind of fall abundance. And this is a bird called a cedar waxwing. They're a songbird that spends the kind of fall, winter, spring here, but they don't make their nests here in this part of the bay. And it's got a berry from a native plant called California holly or toyon, which is an important plant in the ecosystem. So this is a bird I'd tried for a long time to get a positive portrait of, and just to have it on an actual native plant and not somebody's pyracantha or something was just even better. So that was really neat. So the calendar has, it's 8.5 by 11 for the feature images, but I have extra pages that let me do some portrait style or portrait aspect ratios. So that lets me use some other images there. And I also have insets. So all the blank squares in the date grid on each month, I try to fill those with photographs, and that is actually a pretty interesting challenge, and helps me really kind of look at photos that I have in a different way. Just an example here on this owl shot is, I'd envisioned it as a kind of portrait vertical, but I needed a 1:3 aspect ratio to fill a gap in that date grid, and that let me kind of zoom in on the eyes and emphasize the look of the owl. And some of the, sometimes you have 6 or 7, not 7, but I guess 5 or 6 blank squares in a grid, and that can be really challenging, but it's kind of a fun challenge to figure out something that works as a extreme panoramic. So like for one of those pictures of goats, you could then find something that, I think probably wasn't as interesting of a picture as shot, where there's a lot of empty space above or below. But when you really kind of narrow down on this dog and the goats that he's herding, it made for a really, it made kind of a small but punchy photo that I could put in there.
Yeah, that picture really has a lot of energy. And like you said, it's because of the cropping. It's really great.
So it's, I think these are I guess probably many of you have gone through a similar layout process and had to do these things with your photos, but it's quite a fun activity to kind of have to puzzle piece something, maybe not, sometimes it can be thematically, but then also just by the aspect ratio. It's kind of a neat constraint for the project. So I think, is that all? Yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about for that. The calendar is pretty straight nature photography, and I think I feel like I have a perspective of as a biologist that maybe not a lot of people have to help get these photos, but it's also I'm not usually trying to convey higher level thoughts about I don't know, loss or memory or things like that, which I really love getting to see the exhibits in this group and hear these projects. So it's something I enjoy. but what I'll spend the rest of the time on are just a couple days that didn't really fit with the calendar idea. And these were days where it was foggy or smoky and the environment kind of disappeared, and it made for a much more eerie and maybe less welcoming park. And that's, you know, that's not something I want to have in these calendars, but something I do find very intriguing. So this was from one day, and it was on a January, where the fog was there. It was very bright, but it's still dense enough fog that was really affecting the viewpoints all around. This was on a path where normally you would see a forest hillside across a small meadow, and now you really, you know, what's there is kind of lost to mystery. Towards the top of the ridge, there's, you know, low wet areas that are reflecting the sky, but it's very, you know, it's tough to tell what's going on. I just found that really, I don't know, makes you wonder what's going on. There's a lot of mystery there. Or, you know, somebody coming out of the fog, and they're, you know, their dog's in the foreground, mostly visible, but the person's this kind of cloaked figure almost, and without much to identify him or give him like a his own thoughts or anything there. So that was one day I found really interesting in ways that, yeah, again, didn't fit this calendar project. The other day was one of our apocalyptic sky days. This was September 2020, one of the, you know, the days it was just brutally dark and orange. And I was not the only person in the park that day, but it was pretty close. The birds were few and far between, and if, you know, so dark, if they were in a tree, you could hear them, but there's no way you could see them. But, you know, this landscape that I've become familiar with over several years of photography, just, it felt like Mars. Like I had no idea. You know, it's very disorienting, and really, it's just tough to describe how dark it was to get these photographs. You know, you have these trails that just disappear into
Alan,
nowhere.
how many pictures do you have still?
I have just 2 more.
Okay.
I'll go through them quickly. Yeah. So, you know, looking up at the ridge, and it's just this eerie light. You know, it's very disorienting to have a lighter kind of below the horizon than above the horizon. And there's a old sanitarium grounds, and I went in there, and it was just so dark that it just became this monochromatic image, which is just so different than any other time I've visited there. So yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I wish we had more time to talk about these, but in the interest of fairness, we have to go to the next person. Alan, it was so fun to think about your project as a calendar and to see these 2 different bodies of work. Everyone, can we give Alan some encouragement, or just tell us how it's inspired us in the chat? Okay, Adriana, you're next. 12 minutes goes so fast.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a series I'm calling My Equator Home. So I'm an immigrant. I've only been in the US and San Francisco for 5 years. And I've always lived at different countries in and around near the equator, where it's like, 90 degrees all year round, where it's rainy, there's a monsoon, it's just bright, colorful, and warm. And so as the weather sets upon us for winter, I've always gotten a little bit sad and depressed, and trying to convey the idea of like what it's like to live somewhere where the sun sets at exactly 7:15 p.m. around a year. I realize it's a very unique experience. And so on my recent trip home, I took a bunch of pictures to really try to like capture the spirit of like what I feel. So I feel like very often when people think about Singapore, which is where my family lives, although I've also lived elsewhere in that region, they think about like big skyscrapers, they think about like concrete and glass, crazy rich Asians, and it's all of that, but it's also all of the stuff that I'm about to show you. So it's all about a place where the food is hot, spicy, and warm, never cold. There's a restaurant in Indonesia that I always stop in on the way to the mountains, just like some of the best food in the world. I love the light, the quality, just the most phenomenal people. There's like the inside of a restaurant that I will walk by. There's a shot on motion picture film that I was learning, just messing around with, trying to develop as well. So it also had like a really interesting quality and color that I really quite enjoyed. So even though people usually say you should put like a warm filter in that film, I kind of like how the blue looks in this scene in Chinatown.
You should do whatever you want.
Hey, it's working
Yeah.
for you. Do it. Yeah, do it that you want.
And being a hub and always having been a hub between, near India and China, some of the best Indian food also exists there. I didn't have time on this trip to go back to India, which is where I also lived, but I was able to go to one of the most famous Bombay restaurants that has a branch in Singapore, and I was able to take my friends there as well. So I really enjoyed it. Noodles, noodle shops, the smell, the smoke, all of that, just happiness. And I think it's also a place of faith, of like a lot of like open expressions of faith that even if I don't belong to some of these communities, think I can really appreciate. So things like a 200-year-old temple. Very often when the early Chinese migrants made it to places like Singapore, Taiwan, they would set up like a big temple to the deity who, supposedly looked after them on this like sea journey. It was usually a matriarch goddess. So I really liked like the matriarch story that's like probably not really often talked about outside of this part of the world. There's a lot of that in folk religion. And then in Little India, where I was born, a lot of, Hindu temples, different small gods, big gods that, you can really go and spend time with, buy garlands. I would come here to get my Indian visa. I would come here to get my Indian money and my Indian phone card on the way there when I would go for my travels in the past. And so to me, it's also about the smells of home, to durian, obviously. And I'll just segue a little bit into that, which is that I'm not the biggest fan of durian, but I think that if people like blue cheese, it's kind of like durian that you get abroad is kind of like getting blue cheese but frozen, so it's kind of like weird. So if you have it in season in the right place, which is to me Singapore and Malaysia, then it can be phenomenal, it can be great, but it's very often processed and not so great outside of it. So in this context, when I go back and visit, I will be like, if it's the season, I'll try some. Also feels familiar, like foot rubs from an old friend in a park. So stumbled upon these two friends in a park, just giving each other foot massages and just really laughing, spending time with each other. And on my last day, well, the day before I had to fly home, my mom's expression of love is just mostly taking me to like get the food that I want or cooking things for me. And so she took me to a little market where this lady was selling a soy sauce brand that I love that I can't get, never found in the US. And this lady was one of the distributors for it. And so she just gave us a great price, just a lot of like flavors, a lot of spices. That's also how I cook to sort of remind me of home. And mostly I think I see a lot of colors like green and red that I miss. Obviously green because of the tropics and the rainforest, and red from clay. So there's like a really old building. I used to go to school around the corner. This is just like, you know, random things. I really like just walking around. So even though it's really hot, it's very walkable. It also doesn't sleep. So I live in San Francisco now, and I often tell people it's the smallest city I've ever lived in. And just walking around at all times of the day, 2 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever, like there's always something to see. So this is me like at 10 a.m. somewhere, walking past temples, behind temples, Little Burma. Singapore has the 4th largest Burmese population in the world after Burma. And so there's a really big community, and I really enjoy going there, spending time in that community. And so in the background, you see a lot of like high-rise skyscrapers, and then you'll see a lot of green. And I think that's what home is like to me, just a lot of green, a lot of red, a lot of contrast between the modern things and like the not so new things. And striking a balance between all of that, I think, is like what I miss the most. And so a lot of this has to do with my own immigrant story. I moved to San Francisco because I'm queer, and Singapore doesn't recognize queer marriage. My wife and I got married, and we want to live somewhere where our marriage was recognized, and it was really important to us. But I'm aware that despite having that privilege to have come here, there's a lot of things about home that I miss. And so I'm in this process of being like, what is home exactly? Is it here? Is it there? Maybe it's a bit of both. And so this is like where I lived right before I came here. I was able to have the opportunity to live in the forest in Singapore, which is not often an experience that people have. I had toucans in my backyard. Some days I had like, you know, snakes. I had like a very different experience compared to like concrete skyscrapers part of it. And when I was hungry, I would just, you know, walk to Little India and get food even at 4 a.m. And so I think that was the sort of life that I really miss, like having, like being in the tropics, smelling that food, being around people, being around a lot of warmth and comfort and hospitality, I think is something that I miss a lot. So that's just, that's all I have.
Wow.
Yeah, lovely. That film is really working for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
I totally agree. I'm loving
yeah.
that. And I really love your how you frame your photographs. Like, yeah, they're not like the textbook way of how to do it, but they are very like, I feel like I'm really there and just experiencing what you're seeing in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also special because this was the first time I've been back in that region shooting film after about a decade of not really doing it, partly because I was like, I had an illness and I was not able to like really like focus on photography for a long time. So when I got back into photography, I was like, well, I want to do film again. And I also want to learn, like, you know, I think being here, also having exposure to a lot of resources, I was also like, I want to learn how to develop and scan my own film. And so a lot of that stuff I have developed and scanned it myself. And now I'm in the process of learning how to do color printing in a darkroom, which I think will be even more special when I, especially some of the shots of like people, like my parents know them. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to send it to them and have them give it to them.
I love seeing your words too, how you made, you know, images with your words, and we're telling a story about, you know, like moving.
Yeah, been a writer first, and I feel like photography was a way for me to like really like add on to that story. And so I really appreciate like the ability to just expand what I'm trying to say and share with people.
I can see that it's very different in Singapore, I guess, or in the East, that it doesn't, I don't recognize anything from any American cities. I can see how you could miss that if that is in your mind, because you're not, a small market here, what we would call a market is nothing like what you're showing us. And so it's stunning, and it's really, eye-opening, I guess, to say that. And the market, the foliage around everything is just amazing. And I can't quite imagine walking out of my door and walking into a snake, though, either.
And I
Kind
think
of
when I
neighborhood.
was living there, I probably missed out a lot of these shots because I was just like, it's just everyday things. But going back with fresh eyes, I think really helped me see it differently.
Yeah, being away and returning is always eye-opening.
So returning to something so different from what you have here, and I'm sorry that you don't have it. It's too bad.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at a point in our immigration journey where I guess next year we'll probably get our green card, and I've always seen that as like an opportunity to then spend more time there and here without having to worry about visas. So really looking forward to it, and also have this idea of like there's a lot of parts of that region that I went to that I somehow just did not photograph at all for a long time because of the illness that I had. And so I have this idea that I would like to go back and do most of that again, but like to just shoot film throughout this time.
Right.
I'm just thinking about these spicy foods and this green and red and your mom and finding that like the special sauce. And I was really curious about so we saw your school, and then there was something that seemed like, I don't know what to think. It was like a bird bath thing. It's like kind of like a parklet. I don't even know what to call it. It's like was it a cage, or is it a little mini garden?
That.
Wait, yeah. Oh, no.
One more.
Go back. One more.
That.
Yeah, what's going on? It's so cool architecturally. So it's like are these real birds, or it's like statuary?
Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, yeah. So I came to this building because I was just in an area for coffee. And the crazy thing is, in these old buildings, you can get like amazing, like local coffee, very traditional coffee, and you get like really like modern coffee, like lattes and stuff. And then you can also get like craft beer, traditional beer. So I came to this building, to the car park, because I used to volunteer at this like women's shelter that is in this building. And for some reason, they had this display and nobody knew what it was. And so I just felt like it was one of those things where I think the part of Singapore that I personally enjoy is the part that I find inexplicable. Like, why is this thing here? And maybe if it's never answered, it's probably better.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you for telling me. All right, that went so fast, that 12 minutes. Can we give Adriana some encouragement in the chat and a little reflection?
Thank you.
That was fun. Thank you. Helen is next. Right now, which is why we're thinking about it, if you would like to share like your website, your Instagram, Alan's got his calendars. I see. That's cool for people who want a calendar, which I think I do. You can put it in the chat too if you want people to visit your website or say hello or keep talking or something like that. But anyway, let's give our encouragement to Adriana. And Helen, why don't you wait like about 2 minutes here for everyone to put whatever information they want in the chat as far as their contact info if they want.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's really great to make friends with other photographers or just if you want. Okay, cool. Helen, how are you ready?
I am ready.
Cool.
I will share my Microsoft PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully this will work. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to read this because it was a written piece, and for me, the words and the images come together. And it's kind of a prose poem, so enjoy or loathe it, either one, but let me know what you think. So in the autumn of 2022, UC Berkeley brought backhoes, chainsaws, and earth movers to People's Park in Berkeley, intending to clear the vegetation and the last unhoused people from its land and make way for a new dormitory. Protesters shut the operation down, and the park has been in both legal limbo and physical limbo ever since. I made these photographs and the words that accompany them for a critical journal of the built environment called Platform, but I've never really presented them primarily to photographers, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the pictures. I'm an architect by training, so this place had a lot of meaning for me, looking at the kinds of architecture and experiences of people in a place that we don't usually think of as architectural in any way. So here I'll start the poem. Go to the next picture. Go to the next picture, please. There we go. Living is a gerund. We do it in process. People's Park is a gerund, a place of maybe, but not yet. Always coming unless it's gone. Take a walk and look around. People's Park is a doing. Bake a birthday cake for a woman living on the street. Lower it to her, candles lit from your window. Plant a collard seed. Watch a collard copia spread, so much that no one can use it all. You can eat this. Build a library in a shed or spread books on a stump, words to make sense of night's sudden devastation. Here's a tarot card, a playing card, a birthday card, a shoe. Bring a hose pipe, a snake, outdoor shower and water for the camp, piss for the toilets, sweat and tears. I came across the United States from Maine with my ukulele. Outside a Walmart in Nevada, the manager told me the customers felt threatened by me and my uke. This little girl from Maine, long hair, sweet smile, patterned dress, my wary eye. The park gives its blessings. The park provides. I haven't needed to leave the park for anything in the 2 weeks I've been here. She's moved on now after a rest. We all need a rest sometimes. Every place has a history. Some places make it more visible, and today more urgent. Some places point to the future. We need places where our history comes into focus. Maybe with the right lens, it can burn a hole in our present. A redwood stood here, Its shade was so wide, and looking up was a revelation. The stars in its needles, the tents below, the boy in the branches who I fed all through his months of perching. Then another day, there's somebody here taking pictures. There's somebody taking pictures. That's the right alert, the warning that an outsider, a journalist maybe, or a cop has come to take advantage, steal your soul, make you a spectacle for pity tourism, or fix your presence in place and time. I'm wary, I'm respectful, but I need you to see this place. The woman from Maine told me about the man in the corner of the park who was talking to himself. He just needed a place to be for a while, without the pressure to behave, a respite, a detour, a better home than the dirty roads. A woman from Arizona was tall and blonde, with a whisper of something in her stance like a friend I once had who asked too much of me and needed more. Long gray coat, stovepipe pants, rouge, fine lips, finer nose, and hunger thin, so far from home. So I'd saved up and left Arizona with an escape plan. I'd get to San Francisco, find a shelter, find a place to be. Being's not so easy when you're from Arizona and you're like me. It's better to be on the street or in the shelter, looking for a different future from one where I die as someone I'm not, or much too soon. I gave her my number as I'd come awfully close to her life myself. She hasn't called, seems very independent, and I hope she's all right. Arizona was just visiting, walking through the park like it's the promised land, the possible place, the legend of goodness and openness. She'd heard about it, People's Park with its abused but living people holding on. See the life coming back among the wreckage. You like a post-apocalyptic fantasies? Well, here's one close at hand. But apocalypse in this world is everywhere and now, and now, and now again until we stop. Are you a friend? It's a shame. It'll never be the way it was. Every flavor of young hopefulness and every spring of hard wisdom, from the couple of aged hippies who perch on the log, of communities and caring, and please stringing out the hurt of every other thing out there. Here for a time or a beat, it can be better for us all, for each of us, for a little while. You'll need practical skills, like how to build a treehouse, work a drill, move a log, plant vegetables, frame a yurt, keep dry, maybe things you learned in the army. It's a war out here with winter coming. Bring your mandolin too. How do you make a place of open goodness? Well, how do you do it at all? But especially in a city under so many demands and commands, and make that place last for always. This is a new church, polity, science, and philosophy. I'm no poet, and I'm just a little bit lost, but I find I'm better here, where at least this hope is expressed, closer to nothing and closer to everything. The university wants its land. The regents want their campus free of conflict. The city is too many people all at once, and they all want something so much they can't see what they've got. I want some justice and some peace, and I find them here. Every city, every institution, every state needs a thorn that tells the city, the institution, and the state that they are not enough, goading them to be better, demanding alternatives, even if the new way is always put off. Every civilization needs its wilderness for feet to follow, dreaming, happily lost and alone, direct and in contact with something more than they can ever know. Or maybe we'll walk together, living the joy of friendship and overcoming in a place where dreams can rest and expand, and make ready for the fight that making every other place better requires. We need a place where we can know each other toe to toe. Spread your sandwiches out here on the people's stage, where Country Joe played and Tyler died. Share my coffee, have a donut. Look out at the ground, the chips, the stumps, the fallen branches, the gravel, the dirt. Look at this good dirt. Apocalypse and peace and the tearing anguish of birth and redemption are here if you let them out and let them in. And that's the end.
Wow.
So what was I looking for? I was looking for what this place was about. I had heard of People's Park. I had taught a little architectural history at the university, and a student once asked me, "Why is People's Park so ugly?" And I sent her off to like do some research, because the history of the place is amazing, dating back to 1968, I believe, and the protest and struggle have been part of its life for the entirety of its existence. And I was just so struck by the demolition the university had done, and by the attempts of people to live still and grow and make a community here, and by the attempts of this area of Berkeley, both to try and change it or to keep it, or the struggle of the city. Is just so complicated. But just visually, it was so compelling to me to see these people living here, and the state of the place, and the growth coming back amongst the wreckage, and just such a poignant place. I just felt it it just desperately needed to be shown and captured, which is why I went there with my 120 Hasselblad and just shot real film, because I didn't want this to be digital. I didn't want this to be artificial in any way. I didn't have the skills to copy it by hand, so this was as close as I could get.
I think you captured the place just beautifully. Yeah.
I know there's an awful lot of images. It's like, this is 15. The full piece is in the link I added to the chat. There were 2 articles. One was a sort of brief capsule history of the park with some imagery, and then this piece, which is a little bit longer in that, because it also refers back to the microdot of freedom that's on university's campus in front of Sproul Plaza, which comes into this anyway. But if you want to see them again and see many more, they're all there.
Yeah, the picture that you just showed before this one, there was some like little shoes that were shoes.
Are
Yeah.
you see it now? Yeah. Yeah, the shoes here, I loved those. I mean, they're tragic. I love the eye sort of up here. I'm not sure what's going on there, but the enigmatic sign. There's quite a number of images of signs that are part of the other piece, the longer piece. I struggled a lot to try and organize this in some way. I really loved sort of looking into the sunlight while I was taking these images. This one and the last one, both the possibility of it when vision fails, when you can't see what you're looking at, both the terror of that, but also the possibility in it, really spoke to me. I loved this hose. I just saw that and I thought, that makes a photograph right there. And then I don't know if you saw, this was the only person who actually came up to me and said, "Would you take my picture, please?" Otherwise, I really tried to steer clear of people for the reasons I outlined. And I wish I could have made more portraits. I don't know if you caught the guy here in the arch of the tree, looking back towards the tents, the man carrying his blanket. This image is just incredibly poignant to me.
Yeah, for sure.
That fallen, the felled palm tree, and then sort of
felled palm tree. It's so sad.
Yeah. Well, and just these archways, the arches recur in a lot of them, sort of the covering arch of the tent, or here the branches, here the cat, the earth mover, which has now become a swing set. That was sort of brilliantly poetic. The arches here, and the arch of the books over the rock. Sort of the arch hiding amongst the trees.
I thought that was a great image too. This one.
This was my favorite of the bunch.
And that's beautiful.
Tents just hiding here, but also with the 120 film, just the glorious texture of this. If I'd gone there with a 4x5, it would have taken me all day to shoot some of these. So 120 was a good compromise, and it really I hadn't shot photographs in black and white in decades. I'd gone to digital and just really was not happy with the way I couldn't see with it. Going back to a waist level viewfinder and using larger film and a slower process felt really important.
Alan, I want to thank you so much for showing this work and doing the writing and really giving us a story, both in photos and pictures. And I am familiar with this place, so it had resonance for me in that too.
And a lot of people have opinions, so I know it'll raise some people's hackles. Some people will hate me, but it's what it is. It's just the experience of it is just so.
Yeah,
hard.
you
So
are. Yeah, you took us there for sure. I can't believe it's already 8:35. So we're about 5 minutes over. If you guys would like to save the chat, I see some really beautiful things in the chat and links. You can, there's like, what is that called? Ellipse. It's like 3 dots, ... in the chat. It's kind of next to the little face. If you hit that ... then it'll save the chat, and then when the Zoom goes off,
I'm not sure it'll save the whole chat for everyone. It might just save that one segment, but I will have it saved. So if anyone wants a copy of the chat, you feel free to reach out to me and I'll put it in. And if you're not able to save it yourself,
okay.
put
And
my email.
There's an ellipsis on the very bottom that will
is
say.
that it? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that was really great, Rebecca. What a fantastic theme. And
I agree. It was so fun.
It was really incredible seeing everyone's stories of place. Like, I just feel like I went on a trip. I feel a lot better than I did when we started. I've been really stressed out. So it was just so wonderful to see all this work and hear stories from all of you guys and your like very personal stuff, and beautifully presented. So thank you everyone for signing up. And I'm really happy you saw our posts and found us.
You're bearing with us with the Zoom link craziness.
And bearing with us. And I'm gonna just make an announcement. The next and last show and tell of the year is Tuesday, December 5th. It is being hosted by Amanda Bensal, who's one of our volunteers and a member of EPCO. She also came up with this theme for the members show, which is We Are Water, We Are Earth, We Are Sky. There is still one spot left if you have anything to the theme. And if you're not sure about it, that show is going up and you can come in and take a look, and maybe you'll be inspired, and maybe there will be more room on the sign up sheet. And then aside from that, we have show and tells for next year. We'll be putting up a sign up sheet soon, but we do invite people if they have a theme in mind and want to share work and do what Rebecca did tonight. Not necessarily in her style. Everyone has their own style of hosting. Anyway, thanks everybody so much for being here, and hope to see you around, maybe in person at the gallery or at our darkroom.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to meet everyone, and I loved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's fantastic. See you next time.
Bye.